Ipswich Town 2, Chelsea 0. That sounds pretty good, doesn't it? And the best possible end to 2024, which has given us renewed hope that 2025 might be quite special too. This is Blue Monday. Hello and welcome to the Blue Monday podcast, covering all things Ipswich Town since 2015. My name is Mikey Penty-Smith. Joining me for this live match reaction show after Ipswich Town versus Chelsea is Joe Fairs from the Churchmans and Rich Woodward from the Sir Bobby Robson stand. Let's just go straight into it, guys. Joe, what were your emotions walking away from the stadium for the last time in 2024 last night?
It really felt like we needed that, didn't we, to top off what's been such a fantastic year of 2024. I did the pod on Sunday, I think it was, with the guys, and it felt a little bit flat. We were a little bit frustrated and sort of feeling a little bit doomed with it. And you're sort of trying to add on the 2024, what a brilliant year it's been. And it has been, undoubtedly. But just to finish it the way it did at Portman Road, under the lights, with a fantastic atmosphere, was just, I say, everyone was just buzzing again after the game last night, including myself. And it's one of those ones where you get home and devour every bit of content and you look at your watch, it's like 1 o'clock in the morning. I need to get to sleep sooner. I'm going to be a nightmare today. But no, just a brilliant, brilliant night at Portman Road.
Excellent. And Rich, we've had some fantastic nights under the Portman Road lights over the years. That one must rank pretty high, doesn't it?
Yeah, I was trying to figure out whether it's better or worse, and not worse, but as good as Sarmiento. I don't think it is quite, because that you can't be
didn't
that
quite have the
drama.
moment, did it? But as a
no, but
as an occasion, it's up there
massively. And I think, to Joe's point, going into it, there was trepidation. Of course, there's trepidation into every game that we go into now, to take on a team, admittedly with a little bit of rotation, which we'll obviously talk about, but to put in such a strong performance. I think Newcastle definitely shook a few people, myself included. Arsenal, I think, more solid, and to see us then build on it, that trajectory, that evolution to get to the point where we are schooling. Let's be honest. Let's call it what it is. We schooled Chelsea last night. Maresca just can't get one over McKenna. The atmosphere fantastic, and as you can hear from my voice and Joe's voice, I think we definitely enjoyed it.
Yeah, for obvious reasons, I had to keep my shouting to a minimum. I know they can't hear me in the TV, but it doesn't normally stop me. But yeah, I had to be quite restrained last night. This is a live show on YouTube, but we kind of threw this one together a bit last minute, didn't we, Rich, after such a special
But do you want to explain why
we're
we're a couple of minutes late, Mikey?
And we're a couple of minutes late because we had an unexpected visit from the health visitor at about 10 o'clock. And I was thinking, you can't really say... do you mind if I leave now? Because I've got a podcast to do. So
congratulations, Mikey, by the way.
Upstairs at 5 to 11 for work. Thank you very much, Rich.
I hope you've appreciated some. I don't know if you've been watching whilst you've been sleeping.
I have been watching. So for those that don't know, I had my first. My son was born on Saturday the 21st, shortly before the Newcastle game. And when I was doing skin on skin with Ruben, I did get the Ipswich Newcastle game up on my phone and saw us go 3-0 behind, and I thought maybe I'll just put this aside for now. But yeah, I was able to watch the Arsenal game the other night. But yeah, there'd been 2 matches and no Ipswich goals yet for Ruben, and Crystal Palace had got a victory, so I really needed Ipswich to do something last night. And yeah, although he wasn't watching with me, he's definitely a Tracks boy for life. But yeah, we've hastily arranged this podcast, and yeah, thanks to everyone that's joined us in the chat. And from me, thank you to everyone for all of the lovely messages. And I even got sent a nice letter and gift in the post from one of our viewers. So yeah, thank you to John. It did throw me. I had no idea who'd sent it to me, and then I worked out it's Dave Diamond's mate.
Dave's
John.
mate.
So yeah, thanks.
He's got your address now, Mike. He knows where you live. You got to watch out.
He sent me a book about a war in Finland last year at some point, and now he's sending me a nice gift in the post for my baby.
Some light reading
really
for
nice.
Ruben. We need to, by the way, the reason I'm stood in, this is 4G internet, by the way, so if it falls apart, apologies. I'm standing in for Dave Diamond, who Didn't really pay attention to the early morning Teams message, WhatsApp message. But he should appear on Look East later on today. They are sending a camera crew to speak to Dave Diamond. So you've got me instead of my fake wall behind me, for those of you who haven't figured it out yet. The gap in the headphones should give it away. But hopefully normal service resumes at some point this weekend. But yeah, it's good. It's good to chat Chelsea. Good to chat football.
Yeah, let's get into it then. So it was 6:30 p.m. this time when the team news was announced, and we've got used to changes in the lineup over the last few weeks, but there was a pretty seismic one last night. We don't 100% know why, but the co-commentator on the World Feed seemed to think that Muric had some fitness issues, because it's Super Christian Walton in goal. He of two or three appearances in the Championship season last year, obviously our number one throughout League One, hasn't really had much of a look in this year, but off the back of a really good performance for Muric at Arsenal, one of his better games for us, Walton comes in. I know that both of you have been pretty staunch defenders of Muric. Can I just ask what you were concerned about potential with Walton coming in? Because there must have been some concern for you to want Muric to stay in even when he was making mistakes.
Go on, Joe.
I just think that the way sort of Muric has played generally has been, there's obviously been brain farts in there, which no one would deny, but I thought the way he's dominated his box and been a good shot stopper for us, and it's just, he's a 5-year contract for an £8 million signing, probably on big money, that it's a case of you've really got to pick your moment to drop him if you are planning on making a change. And it seems like Kieran McKenna's picked the moment as this one, not off the back of the sort of mistake in the Newcastle game, but the mistake in the Arsenal, sort of a better game against Arsenal. He mentioned that he's been managing a thigh injury for the last few weeks, but it did feel like he was saying that maybe to protect Muric a little bit in that, and it has just been a decision he's been waiting to make and has now decided this was the best time to make it. And like most stuff Kieran McKenna does, it sort of is instantly rewarded with a performance that Christian Walton put in. Like we had this last year when changes were made. Oh, I'm not really sure about that one. Like for me, I saw the team yesterday and thought, I'm not really convinced by Broadhead starting and Walton starting. I didn't think they were the right decisions, but that's probably the first time I've questioned McKenna this season. Shows again that he's the genius and we're the idiots, sort of thing on the sideline.
Where's it got you, Joe?
Yeah, but now Christian Walton's got a chance to make a big claim for the shirt. I imagine it's his shirt to lose now. I don't know exactly. I think he's putting obviously a very good performance last night. There was still some of the issues with kicking. I think it was a short pass that nearly went astray and a couple that just went straight to the opposition when he's tried to go long. But I think it did seem to me, obviously this is just sort of COD psychology looking at it, but the players seemed a little bit more comfortable with him back there. I felt the defence seemed a little bit more comfortable and a little bit more on his side, so to speak. He's maybe more a part of the group. I don't know, but just sort of guessing from there. But no, big decision, and like I say, was fully justified. First clean sheet at home in the Premier League this year.
Yeah,
where I stand on Walton versus Muric, Rich. Sorry, I'll just jump in because I've been a bit of a critic of Muric. I've been sitting on the fence a little bit. I haven't really been calling for Muric to be dropped, but I always felt like a lot of the things that Muric has been good at are things that Walton does well, claiming crosses, shot stopping, and things like that. And Muric's weaknesses that I don't think Walton is much worse in those areas and what he does give you. And I think he proved in the Liverpool game that he's not a goalkeeper to be overawed by an occasion. And he's just a slightly cooler head and a better communicator. And if he does make a mistake, he's less susceptible to having a mad sort of 10, 15 minutes. But we definitely haven't seen the last of Muric. He's going to come back in at some point. And as you said, Joe, he has had some really good moments in this season and has taken the pressure off us a lot of times by coming for crosses and claiming crosses that maybe Walton wouldn't have been able to get to. But it's easy to say after the game that Walton had last night that Walton should have the shirt now, right, Rich?
Yeah, I mean, a clean sheet. And what more can he do? I mean, it was either going to be you get pumped by Chelsea, you change the keeper. It was always going to happen. You can't really blame Christian Walton, or he has a blinder, which is exactly what all of us want. Let's be honest. I know, Joe and I in particular on this podcast and a few others have backed Muric. I think the potential, his ceiling, I think is going to be higher in the long term than Christian Walton. But right now, a lot of people have been flagging in the live chat in these podcasts that I get to read and all of us get to see, that they think Walton should have come in. And, at some point that that feeling, that sentiment, may get out onto the pitch. And so if the players have maybe had a word about it as well, McKenna is astute tactically, but last night, huge cheer for Walton picking up his goal in front of the North Stand. That galvanizes everyone a little bit as well. I'm not saying that's why McKenna did it. I guess, I'm sympathetic to Muric because he has been really forced to play this short passing game out from the back. And at times he's looked a bit dodgy at it. He's got better and better, by the way, but he's been kind of forced to do it. And Walton comes into the team, and the first thing that McKenna gets him doing is hooning it down to the right-hand side for Wes Burns to try and beat Cucurella in the air. So you kind of think, well, we had a long debate about this with my old man and his mate Norman in the Wool Pack straight after the game, because there's a view around where my dad sits that Walton should have come in. And I was going, if Muric was able to hoof it down the right-hand side every time rather than pass it short to Morsey or Custer, I wonder whether things might be different. But nevertheless, Walton's in goal, clean sheet, some great saves, which we'll talk about. So job done in terms of McKenna.
But also there's a sort of crowd reaction as well, because as soon as Walton was in, it did feel like it lifted elements of the crowd, rightly or wrongly. And
it did, yeah.
Even to like one point, like Walton tries to kick the ball long and just miscues it by 10 yards, and it just goes straight to their fullback. And the guys, at least he didn't kick it straight out of play like Muric does. And I thought, well, it's probably better if it goes straight out of play to give you a chance, gives you a chance to reset. But there's that prevailing attitude in the crowd, and sometimes the crowd doesn't know everything, but sometimes you do have to listen to the atmosphere it creates, the tension it brings to it. And so McKenna will be back in with everything he does, and another one where he's proved instantly correct on something.
Yeah. And Rich, if you could bring the team up again, that obviously wasn't the only big change. Broadhead, a first start for him. Wolfenden keeps his place, so it's kind of that we've got three centre backs in there. You can't really put a formation on a McKenna team, can we? But yeah, Burns out on the right, Davis out on the left, with O'Shea and Greaves either side of Luke Wolfenden, and then Morsey comes straight back in alongside Kayusti. So Calvin Phillips drops back to the bench. Hutchinson is sort of playing as a second striker or number 10, whatever you want to call it. Broadhead sort of drifting in off the left, which he did brilliantly in Delap, just a one-man wrecking ball in the centre forward position. And I'll get straight into the action here. And the game actually doesn't start for me, Rich. It doesn't start on the referee's whistle. It starts when Delap first makes contact with a centre-back. It's normally about 4 seconds into the game where he sprints and then forgets to slow down and make sure that he makes contact. And that sort of sets the tone, doesn't it, for the game?
Yeah, and I love that. There was a moment, I think it might have been in the first half as well, where the ball's going out of play for a throw-in, but he just charges into the back of what I think it might have been Disassi perhaps, and just almost shoves him over the hoarding as well. And that was what we needed. We were a little bit, there was some fair criticism about how passive and how we were very much in the low block against Arsenal, and people wanted to see a bit more adventure at home. And that's exactly what we did. And I'm trying to, I haven't looked back, I haven't watched the whole game yet again, but I kind of felt we started particularly well. At the moment, it's don't concede within 30 seconds and ruin the whole game. And again, sadly this season we've done that. Newcastle, case in point, and you kind of felt if Chelsea had got that 30-second, 1-minute goal, it might have been an onslaught and it might have been a trickier game. But we actually steadied pretty well, and it was definitely those wide positions and trying to release Broadhead to release Delap. That was working really well, and the left-hand side move that leads to the penalty, which we'll get to, because it's an 11-minute goal, I think it is. After VAR, it might be 13 or 14, I don't know. But I thought we started pretty well, and definitely there was more fight to us. I think the referee was good. I think the chat have mentioned the referee, until it got a little bit handbagsy at about 75 minutes. I think the referee allowed things generally to flow and for us to get stuck in a little bit. And to that point, it kind of worked. And it was definitely some growing momentum for us, and the goal came at the perfect time, didn't it, Joe?
Yeah, and we'd had a sort of couple of moments right from the very start. Leif Davis almost got in, and then it was getting quite end to end at that point, but you could tell we were really, really pressing high. They changed their keeper from Sanchez to Jorgensen. They changed their right back, and I think we really target those areas with the press. And Hutchinson and Delap and Burns and Broad, just the energy they all brought was excellent. And there's a chance very early on where Burns wins the ball back, ends up driving up the pitch, giving it to Hutchinson, who pulls it across to Broadhead, who has a good shot, which is blocked by the defender. And then when the goal comes, it's from a brilliant bit of midfield play by Jens Kajust, who sort of uses great feet to get past one player, then just drops his shoulder, drives past another, gives it to Davis, and you see Delap make that run inside, and Davis just bends it into his path, and Delap gets there first. Jorgensen comes across, and Delap sort of stumbles to get the ball and tries to get back up to get it, and then is caught by the keeper. I had a perfect view of it from where I was, and I didn't think it was one you'd get given. For me, it's like I'm not sure there's enough in that. I don't think he was going to get to the ball, but I think it's one of those which is how VAR should be this year, where it's a referee's call, and there wasn't sufficient evidence to overturn it. I think had the referee not given it, there wouldn't have been sufficient evidence the other way. It was just one of those ones where it's a sort of pick 'em decision there, and obviously the Chelsea petulant players. I'll keep it alliterative there rather than pricks. Sort of get up straight after the referee, and Wes Burns picks the ball up, and I think we all know who's taking the penalty. And it wasn't going to be Wes Burns, and he hands the ball over to Liam Delap to put down on the spot, and there we go.
So the winning of the penalty there, Rich, for me, reminded me of Erling Haaland, because he's kind of gone from a standing start and just covered a load of ground really quickly and gets to the ball first when he looked second favourite for a moment. But the penalty itself was Harry Kane special, wasn't it? Bottom corner, but with loads of power.
Yeah, I mean, fair play to Jorgensen, who'd done his homework, but he mentioned it, I think, in post-match to Optus. This is the world we live in, where he's giving interviews to Australian media rather than something that we could have heard. But anyway, and said that he's practiced those a million times, and it showed. You know, in that moment, VAR really adds a little bit of extra drama to proceedings, because you have to sit there for 3 minutes stewing on what you're going to do. I assume Liam Delap knew where he was going to put it, perhaps, and just stepped up with so much confidence. And, you know, Jorgensen, it's a great dive, but it's not going to be enough because he hits it with power. And it's right in the corner of the net, isn't it? Like perfect.
Into the side netting, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah, it's a brilliant penalty. And you know, to Joe's point about the kind of the start that we had and the momentum we were building, it was really crucial that if we were going to get out anything from last night, that we get that goal. And it would have been a real kind of pop the balloon, as it were, if Jorgensen had got a hand on that and palmed it wide, but he didn't. It goes in, and we are buoyed, but Chelsea come back into it with a vengeance, don't they, throughout the rest of the first half?
They do, but
there's a chance for Delap, of course.
The crowd is up, and Delap gets another chance. Really good pressing from Mari Hutchinson on Cucurella, blocks his clearance. Delap absolutely lashes it. He's got back into that mindset of not overthinking things and just smashes a half volley. Might have been heading towards the post, but a good save from Jorgensen. But this is when Chelsea wake up. Palmer has a free kick on the edge of the box, and they kind of play a short one, and Palmer bends it round the wall, hits the post, comes back out, and Kunku gets a touch on it. But Walton's quick off the ground, holds on to it. Palmer then sets up Felix. This is in the 24th minute. I didn't realise how early it was. Fantastic ball in from Palmer. Felix sort of ghosts into the back post. Morsey was tracking him, but kind of lost him a little bit. And Felix scores and then does this in front of the Sir Bobby Robson stand. But unfortunately,
you need to explain
Felix,
that for podcast listeners, Mikey.
Okay, yeah. So he was doing a going to sleep celebration, which doesn't make sense at 1-1. No. But luckily, it wasn't our defence that were caught napping, because they were just about high enough in the VAR check. Although they were desperately trying as hard as they could to find an angle that showed that Wolfenden was playing him onside, they weren't able to. And the goal was ruled out. Chelsea keep coming. Go on.
I don't really understand how they looked at that for so long.
I was going to say, can we moan about the VAR here?
Yeah, it's because you couldn't conclusively tell from the camera angle that Wolfenden wasn't playing him onside. But the co-commentator, I can't remember his name, who's really, really
Tony
positive.
Gale, was it?
No, it definitely wasn't Tony Gale. No,
I was on Sky Sports highlights I was listening to this morning.
Okay, no, it was quite a positive guy. I think he's Terry something anyway, but he was saying that Wolfenden's back leg would have to be very long to be playing Felix onside, but the problem was it was all a bit obscured, so they had to keep checking and checking. But
because they just kept going onto other angles, didn't they? I watched the Sky Sports like the 30 minutes highlights this morning, and they just kept going to these other angles. Like, well, you're not going to see anything from this angle, so I don't know what you're looking for there. So it's
Very
strange because it just looked offside from the first replay, and
we get
it's one of those ones where the
screenshot,
players obviously seem to think it was offside. Oh, I can't see the screen where I am.
Okay.
So, but it looked like one of those ones where all the players knew it was off because we were everyone was set up ready to take the free kick, really. But
yeah, we get the screenshot on the big screen in inverted commas, and it was clear that he was offside from that. But if it's taken him 3 minutes to manufacture the angle or the graphics to get there, then fair dues. But it was my end, and I kind of felt there was a few decisions down our left hand side. Obviously, they were targeting down that because of Davis and his kind of advanced position, and it did feel like it was marginally off in the stadium at the time. And the players, as Joe said, had sat around and where the free kick would be played rather than getting back into shape for a kickoff. So, I mean, very quickly, we need to shout out Joe Fairs on this. I messaged the group last night about this. Joe's talked about, what we need to win matches against Chelsea or anyone. We need to be 100%. They kind of need to be 90%. And all of the decisions kind of need to go away and the luck needs to go away. Or we've had a penalty that is a little bit marginal, let's be honest. And we've had a VAR call on a marginal offside that's gone with us as well.
And it's not just the VAR on that side. I think it's really poor from Felix, really, because he's looking across the line and he's just gone a bit early. There's no real need for him to go that early because he can see when Palmer's playing that. So it's not like the VAR gives the correct decision, but the luck, I guess, there is that Felix just times that run poorly.
But I guess what I'm saying is we haven't had VAR decisions go for us seemingly all season. So it's an instance where VAR has worked in our favour and got it right, let's be honest, but has gone in our favour. And Mikey, we're going to talk about 2 efforts off the woodwork that could... If they're an inch lower, it could be a different scoreline at halftime, couldn't it?
Yeah, I've already mentioned the Palmer free kick that hits the inside of the post and sort of rolls back in. That could have easily been followed up as well. Caicedo has a shot over the bar, but then Christian Walton makes an unbelievable save from a first-time Cole Palmer shot. Curling, it wasn't quite in the top corner, and Walton's had to go.
Of the goal, wasn't it?
It was his wrong hand, wasn't it? It was I guess it would have been his left hand that tips it, flicks it up onto the crossbar right in the stroke of half time. That would have sort of taken a lot of energy out of the stadium going into half time, to say the least, wouldn't it, Rich? But a fantastic save from your old mate Walton.
Yeah, you can check out our interview with Christian Walton on the podcast from a few years ago. Yeah, great save. I mean, we need to talk about Cole Palmer. It's kind of rare that I know that people don't like it when we talk about opposition players. I don't know whether he had lots of space because he's just brilliant or because we were too worried about engaging and fouling him. But he basically just ran the show for Chelsea last night. There was a bit of rotation. We haven't talked about the changes they made, but he basically was just the kind of engine room for everything in an attacking sense. And obviously it hit the post for the free kick. Got really lucky with that rebound, by the way, that just kind of went into Walton's chest, thankfully.
But that was brilliant from Nathan Broadhead, that was, because it's Broadhead gets there and he sort of kicks, rather than Nkunku shoots, he kicks the ball into Nkunku. So
he
has
gets
he not done that?
Nkunku's
Nkunku's got an open goal, but he sort of totally prevents a goal there for me, really. So, and that's not a part of Nathan Broadhead's game that we really talk about often, his sort of defensive hard work. But, that was a brilliant piece of play for him there.
Yeah, and that shot, Mikey, that we're talking about, I think it comes a little bit out of Palmer's heel rather than kind of more, I don't know what there's on the instep, which might take the accuracy out of it, but it's a good height for Walton, but he's got to get across and make it, and palms it onto the crossbar. And again, it buoys the crowd because it's another big moment that in previous matches might have gone against us. Weird off the bar and in kind of goal that we had against Newcastle, and it hasn't. And everyone's really up for it. The crowd were. We've talked about it already. The crowd were massive. There was. At 1-0, we were going to have to sit in and kind of do a little bit of the Arsenal type performance, and we did, but we were working so hard and the crowd acknowledged it and got behind the players, and that continued into the second half.
Yeah, so brilliant first half there, Joe, but maybe lacking in a little bit of control. Understandably, there's world-class players playing against us. Chelsea looking really dangerous, but what would the nature of McKenna's half-time team talk have been, do you think?
I guess it's just a case of just trying to tighten up a little bit in the second half and don't try and force any chances into them, because the chance that Cole Palmer had where he hits the bar, like Kayust almost like wins the ball in midfield and then just sort of ends up overcommitting, and then all of a sudden we're a man short. And when Felix has a disallowed goal, Morsey goes across, he wins the ball really well off Fernandez, but the ball bounces straight to their player, and then all of a sudden he's out of position. So it's probably a little bit more like, don't overcommit trying to win the ball in dangerous areas. It's more important to keep yourself in shape, because their chances, as soon as a player got pulled out of position, often doing something good, that space was just exploited really, really quickly.
Yeah, and then at the start of the second half, Chelsea, as feared, Rich, are coming out pretty strong again. Felix has a header cleared off the line by Wes Burns. Burns just in the right position there, read the play really well. Really good game that from Wes Burns last night. Madueke has a chance similar to a Delap one in the first half, where it really tight angles, so he just goes for power at the near post, and Walton just smartly uses his feet, one you'd expect him to make. But then on 53, Rich, we look pretty dangerous on the counter-attack, don't we? Talk us through this wonderful second goal.
Well, this has been happening a few times in the first half, where the ball has landed on halfway and Delap has held off the defenders and then run at them. And this is it. I mean, I think Chelsea fans were worried about Disasi coming back in at right back, and it showed. Really shocking pass into Delap halfway, and he's on the gallop. And we're used to Delap, Fulham, Villa, going off on a run and ending with a shot, which obviously happened in the second half. And there's one in the first half and one in the second half where he does that. But he's really astute, takes the ball to the edge of the 18, maybe inside the box, and swivels and holds the ball up and waits for Amari, who's galloping in, to join him. I think he admitted again in this post-match interview, he pinged it at Amari, which is fair enough. You've got to make the pass, don't you? You don't want to foot in from a Chelsea defender. Amari probably takes too heavy a touch, because he kind of takes the ball back into an area where there's about 4 Chelsea defenders, but is really quick to get his shot away. And it's, again, if we talked about the penalty is perfect placement, the shot from Amari is perfect placement as well. Low, but straight into the corner, back across Jorgensen. He can't react to it because there's a crowd of players around the ball. I thought the moment had gone, but he gets the shot away, and the North Stand, the Portman Road, goes absolutely crazy. And what's great to see, Mikey, none of this kind of I'm sorry for scoring a goal celebration. The backflip is back, and it kind of that was the cherry on the top of the cake that had been that performance and that goal, because I think everyone wanted to kind of enjoy that moment, and and it was great to see Amari getting involved in that as well. And what a great moment. And fair to say that goal was against the run of play. So, a real sucker punch for Chelsea, who, regroup, have had a few chances on goal. I think there's a header just randomly goes wide that probably should go in. I think you guys might have mentioned that. So to then go up the other end of the field and just completely, grab the game by the scruff of the neck. And we kind of talked about this Ipswich team need 2 goals to win a match, not 1 at Premier League level, where we have that 2-goal lead. And what was it? The 55th minute, what is it? I'm trying to look at my commentary. 53rd minute, perfect, to then actually sit in and get our shape back.
Yeah, brilliant. And you mentioned the celebration. I was watching the highlights this morning with my little niece, Molly. She absolutely loved that celebration from Amari. She's a gymnast herself. She loved it. And we keep being dangerous on the break here. Broadhead has a half volley that's well held by Jorgensen. Then there's the absolute embodiment of Liam Delap last night, Joe. I was worried that he's probably going to have to come off fairly soon. The commentators were talking about him limping whenever Chelsea were in possession, but then he'd suddenly come alive. And he just goes on that incredible rampaging run down the right flank, and he's got no one in support, but he's still, with that power that he's got in his right foot, Joe, he's always a danger, isn't he? Because he can shoot from anywhere, and in that case, he just forced a corner, didn't he?
He seems to hit the target more often than not as well, doesn't he? It's like, and he strikes the ball so much harder than anyone else. I was speaking to an ex-player, and they said they've sort of been down at the training ground, and they spoke to a couple of players. And it's like he just hits the ball like harder than anyone. It's not like one of us goes to the park. It's like this is all other professional footballers saying he just hits the ball so much harder and cleaner than anyone else in the squad, which is
traction engine.
Yeah, and like it's one of those ones, Jorgensen, there's no way he can hold that. It's just fired at him. And I say, it's probably a comfortable save, but it's a comfortable save that sees the ball go behind for a corner, and all of a sudden the whole game changes because you can just move up there, sort of take it up there, slow it down, wander over there to take the corner. And then I think that led to like 3 or 4 corners straight from it as well. So it just sucked so much time off the clock. And really, it was pretty comfortable it was only uncomfortable because we're Ipswich fans panicking that we're not going to win the game. And if they score a goal, what happens next? But there wasn't really any chances. There's poor decisions. Enzo has a shot that goes miles over. Nicholas Jackson takes a touch and then just lifts a volley from an impossible angle 10 yards over the bar. Cole Palmer beats a man down the side and puts it over. And there was just they didn't really work the ball very well. It was very similar to the Tottenham game where they just kept making bad decisions and shooting from bad positions rather than actually trying to work it into a decent opportunity. And they just didn't really know how to play it other than just supreme petulance, rolling around, moaning. I say there must have been 6 or 7 like proper stoppages for injuries, for head injuries, for
Levi Colwill was in the wars last night, wasn't he? So many times he went down and
and you just think like
was able to carry on,
like because it's one where Ben Johnson just comes on, doesn't he? And he probably catches him briefly with his hand across his face, but there's no real injury. And he's running around there, and he ends up getting himself booked going off at the referee from the side. That's what led to the Davis scrap. Cucurella, obviously an absolute massive twat.
The Cucurella one,
touched, does he?
The Cucurella one in the first half was outrageous because but it was Amari, wasn't he?
Yeah,
went in and carried on the run, but Cucurella's leapt up in the air with his feet tucked in before Amari's even got there, and then rolls around on the floor. It was quite pathetic. Enzo Fernandez he's been pocketed by Sam Morsey, and he loses his head towards the end of the game as well.
He should have walked.
It was lovely.
João Felix and Neto. Every time someone went near them, they ended up on a heap in the floor.
Yeah.
It's funny because Chelsea have always been an unpopular team, but it seems like this year they've got this new team, lots of young players, and this mad squad that they've built, and they've been quite a decent team to watch and sort of actually think, not wanting them to do well because you don't really care about anyone else.
They're a guilty pleasure, aren't they, Joe?
Yeah, a little bit like that. But then when you actually watch them in the flesh, you think, oh my God, yeah, I could not watch this team week out. And I can't imagine a lot of Chelsea fans enjoy it either, because when you're a team that's had their golden era, your sort of John Terry's, Didier Drogba's, Frank Lampard's, big, tough players. I know Drogba used to dive around like a fairy often as well. But these guys, they didn't seem to have any heart in them. It felt like they just gave up and they just moaned and whinged, and the game went away from them. They had no one with the character to drag them back into the game and into it. And I say I can't imagine I know a few Chelsea fans. I know what sort of football they like watching and what sort of characters they like on the pitch. And I think Cole Palmer aside, I don't think they've got much of that in there.
Yeah, there's definitely a lack of leadership on the pitch, and that, as Joe was sort of saying, just showering shots from the edge of the box that end up in the top tier of the South Stand. It was, I don't know whether they were panicking or whether it was just frustration. And, and what I love as well is that we brought on, it was kind of one of the first instances this season where the bench hasn't necessarily weakened us. We brought on comparable players, and Smodic comes on. And Smodic was in prime wind-up mode last night as well. He was getting in their ears as well, trying to have a little bit of encourage them to do something stupid like Cunha, although they get a two-game ban, wouldn't they, if they got into some silliness. But that's one for another day. Just an aside, I think it does feel like the league needs to figure out the head injury situation, because there were a few instances. I think one instance where we were on a breakaway with Amari, I think, and one of their players goes down holding his head and the game has to stop. Morsey, I think, as well, second half, takes the ball out of midfield.
What I will say, Rich, if we're going to talk about the dark arts and faking injuries, that is something, maybe not the head injuries, but that is something that we've been using to our advantage for a couple of years. Yeah, I mean,
I'd include that as well, but this is a little bit. Well, maybe it isn't different. Maybe it's blue tinted specs, Mikey. You're right. But
what do you think the players should have to come off? If as soon as they're down with a head injury, they should have to come off.
Yeah, because what we're seeing is players go down with a head injury.
But then the danger is that if then players might not stay down when they actually do.
I think they should. I think I was speaking to people before the game about this, because obviously it happened, and it's almost like I think there needs to be some sort of punishment for just clear faking of injury.
If you get straight back up,
where like Cucurella, for example, where he's jumping up, rolling around, like he's been shot when he hasn't even been touched. Odegaard on Friday night, where Jack Clark catches him in the chest and he's rolling around holding his face. And when it's clearly deliberate, like Neto did it for Chelsea against Fulham, and he ended up laying on a heap when he hasn't been touched and the ball's in the back of the net, and you just think, well, that's the sort of punishment you get. But if every time there's any contact, because there was one Morsey, I think he catches either Neto or Enzo, and they just it's like in the knee, and they're rolling around holding their head, and the game stops because it's a head injury. And I think that the head injury rules are in there for a specific reason, because head injuries are very dangerous. And if you're a referee and if you see somebody who is saying they've got head injury, you have to stop the game, which is understandable. But if people are just pretending that they've got head injury, I think there needs to be some sort of punishment, because you're going to end up with genuine head injuries being missed because it becomes the boy who cried wolf. So there needs to be something because, like I say, but even when you saw Odegaard on Friday, he's caught in the chest. But even after the game, after the incident, he's still effing and blinded at the official, at the linesman on that side, saying he's been caught in the face. And you think, you just haven't. But it's all just trying to get in the ref's head for the next one. And I'm sure we do that sort of thing as well. And it's not a individual club criticism. But when you are actually like diving, you can only really dive if someone gives you an opportunity to make one. But when it is actually just totally faking injury by holding different body parts, by rolling around when you haven't been touched, that sort of stuff doesn't need to be done. And it's especially bad. I think the worst culprits are always the Portuguese and the Spanish players in the league. So less of them, please.
Covering some bases today, aren't you, Joe? Eh?
That's the thoughts of Joe Fairs.
Not necessarily those of the
Blue Monday podcast or anyone that may work with the Premier League. But yeah, as you mentioned, Phillips and Smodics come on, and then Delap and Amari come off, and Terry Gibson, the co-commentator, I think they've engineered this substitution so Delap and Amari can take their bow. That was I said world class on social media. I think we could definitely call Delap's performance world class. He looked who he was up against and what he was able to do in that game. He's basically assisted 2 goals and scored 1, and just an incredible individual performance. But we've also got to give a lot of credit, Rich, and we always do this, don't we? But to the League One lads, the likes of Burns, Broadhead, Walton, Wolfenden, Morsey and Davis as usual. But just it fills you with pride, doesn't it, that we were able to get this famous win with so many of the players that have been around, a lot of them before McKenna was even at Ipswich Town. I wonder if Paul Cook was... Actually, he wouldn't have been watching last night unless he has a dodgy fire stick. Probably wouldn't put it past Paul Cook having a dodgy fire stick, actually, but digress.
Do you want to backtrack from that as well, Mikey? I mean, who's the next person who's going to libel anyone on this podcast? No, Paul Cook. Much love.
Because he loves his football. That's all.
Of course, he's anything you can do to get to watch the game, of course. Yeah, make a trip to Amsterdam or what have you. I mean, and add Christian Walton to the mix. Man of the match. Probably not the man of the match.
No, Delap's man of the match.
Delap's man of the match, but I get the sentiment. The great thing was there was I think it was the BBC or one, maybe even the Guardian player ratings. Everyone's getting 7s, 8s, 9s out of 10s, which is exactly as it should be. There's no one player who stood out as having a weak game. I know there was a couple of iffy moments, maybe for Leaf, and Morsey wasn't kind of dominant, his normal dominant self, but nevertheless were contributing from minute 0 to minute 95, whatever it was. And it's great to see. And we kind of talked about this learning and development culture that McKenna has instilled in the squad, and you can see that these players are improving week by week. It's great to get Broadhead back involved. We kind of talked about his kind of X factor. He had something different. He definitely did that last night. Maybe not as intense with his pressing, but maybe that's a fitness thing than Smodic is. But yeah, it's just great to see, Mikey, that I think Stuart Watson tweeted the relative values of the squads, 185 million versus 1 billion or whatever it was. And when you've got Wes Burns signed from Fleetwood, I think on a free or at least an undisclosed small 6-figure amount, and there's this great photo of him holding off Cucurella with his head or whatever, and Cucurella's like 55 million from Brighton or whatever it was, wasn't it? It's great to see us punching well above our weight, and what's more, a really important win given the narrative around Wolves is 7 points in their last 3 since we beat them and keeping us in it. Of course we wanted to get the monkey off our back regarding the no home win in the Premier League this half of the season. So it's great to get that off our backs as well. but we've kept ourselves in it. Wolves shouldn't really be there. A few people have talked about that in the chat, but we are now dragging Everton back into it. Leicester, we're above Leicester now, and so suddenly the relegation fight looks a lot more optimistic, whereas it looked a bit iffy after Newcastle and Arsenal.
Yeah, shall we have a look at the league table and the other results, Rich, maybe after hearing from our sponsors?
Oh, yep, I'll press some buttons for you. Yep, good stuff.
Blue Monday is proudly brought to you in partnership with our friends at Atwell Solicitors, your ideal legal partner for work on property or business law. Their client care has repeatedly been recognised as outstanding, and they are people-focused with a plain English approach which sets them apart. They have offices in Ipswich, Colchester and London, and to find out more, head to atwells.com. Cheers, Rich. All of those royalties keep rolling in for me.
So got to buy nappies somehow, mate.
Yeah. Let's take a look at that league table, or at least the bottom half, Rich, because as you mentioned, we have managed to pull a couple with. Yeah, I'm glad that Manchester United are in this relegation picture we've got here.
So we're now admitted as much, isn't he? 9
points ahead of Southampton now, and we're back above Leicester, which I think psychologically is quite important. Wolves, they've got a superior goal difference to us, which is a bit of a problem, I think. But they're also 1 point ahead of us. And then Everton on 17, 2 points ahead. Crystal Palace have got a 5-point advantage. And then, we're 7 points off Manchester United, 8 points off West Ham. I mean, it wasn't a result that we were expecting last night, but one that we definitely needed. Just a quick look at the other results. Any you want to talk about there? There's Leicester losing at home to Manchester City. That was important. Another Crystal Palace winning. We could have done with that one being a draw, probably. Just incredible stuff from Nottingham Forest and a good result for us at Goodison there, Joe.
Yeah, that's what we needed. That when Everton stayed down there, and I think we covered most of those on the Sunday. I think they were all on the Sunday one, those ones, weren't they? And went from there. But we just, I think Southampton. The only time we need to worry about Southampton between now and the end of the season is when we play them at Portman Road, because if they catch us, we're gone. Effectively, they are gone. There's no way you can come back from 6 points in half a season to get where they need to get to. It's just not going to happen. So it is looking like trying to keep Everton dragged in there. I know it shows they've got a game in hand, but that's the derby against Liverpool that was cancelled. So you'd expect that one not to be a victory for them. I know it's at Goodison, but it's still going to be Liverpool just look unbelievable at the moment and go from there. Yeah, so it's really just a case of just Everton, Wolves, us and Leicester. And I think if we carry on the way we are and Leicester carry on the way they are, it could just end up as Everton, Wolves and us. I think Leicester look a long way off where they need to be just defensively, although they did play better against Man City on Sunday, but we'll see where we are from there. But I say we just got to keep doing what we're doing. I think the squad, I like the move of Darragh O'Shea to the right centre-back position, because obviously we played Axel Tuanzebe there at the start of the season and we were very solid defensively at the start of the season. And then when Axel went out of the team and we've sort of had to change between Ben Johnson, Harry Clark, we hadn't looked anywhere near as solid for those few games. And now Darragh O'Shea's gone back there. We're seemingly back to that same balance we had, where you've got a more big, solid, defensive-minded player there as opposed to more of a fullback. So I imagine he'll stay there until Axel Tuanzebe's back fit. I think Kieran McKenna's mentioned sometime in January for him, and maybe we look to recruit somebody in that model, in that mode in the next few weeks, and maybe Harry Clark could even be someone that goes out on loan, because I don't see that he's going to play a huge amount in the second half of the season. And when you look at the transfer window, I know we'll cover that in a lot more detail over the next few weeks, and I've already sent a load of links around this morning that have already happened. But for every player we sign, one player's going to need to go out, and it's very obvious we're going to try and sign a striker, and if we do, it'll be Ali Al-Hamidi that will be sent out on loan somewhere. But if we sign a new right back, that means somebody's got to go. If we sign a new right winger, it means somebody's got to go. If we sign another central midfielder, and all the sort of 27, there's 27 players in our squad, and bar Kieran Slicker as the third goalkeeper. Everyone has contributed so far, and you're going to be looking at players like who have been on the fringes. Someone like Nathan Broadhead was somebody who's been on the fringes, has now started the last game. And does it mean Jack Clark is now in a position on the fringes, but he can only go to Sunderland because he's already played for 2 clubs this year. His move obviously hasn't been a major success so far. It's really, really difficult. Massimo Luongo, is he someone that gets sent out on loan somewhere because he's just a long way off, and he's probably one of the players in the squad that does it. So it's going to be a really difficult one. I think Stevie's just mentioned in comments there. Is Ogbene, is he out definitely till the end of the season? He was on Live to Pitch the other week and said he should have his boot off in a few weeks. But if he's going to be back in middle of April, then we won't deregister him as we didn't with Wes Burns or didn't with George Hurst last season. Yeah. So it's going to be really, really difficult.
Yeah. Transfer chat, Rich. Are you glad to be defrosted there?
Yeah. No. I'll see you on the 31st of January. Well, it's the 3rd of February, isn't it? It's dragging it out even longer. I just wanted to shout out Wolfie, by the way. I don't think we've mentioned him so far. Came in against Arsenal. Oh. It's really great. He doesn't have the yard of pace that his opposite numbers do. We didn't mention the fact that Chelsea brought on Nicholas Jackson and Jadon Sancho, by the way, and it made zero difference their ability to win the game last night. But yeah, Wolfie's positioning, he's got the yard in his head. It was really great to see that against Arsenal, and really great to see it.
And he's communicating really well as well. I kind of forgot that the evolution of Luke Wolfenden last season into a commanding centre back. He's not the commanding centre back at our football club, but he's one that does communicate really, really positively and gets stuck in, wins headers, positional, plays good, and he's an extra good passer as well out from the back. So yeah, brilliant that he's back involved, and it feels nice as well to see the player that came through. It did sting a little bit seeing him out of the squad for so long when O'Shea came in, but yeah, it's good to see him both on the pitch now.
When you look at Wolfenden, he's I think he did come in for the Everton game in the middle. I think that was the only game he's played in the middle. But other than that, he started 5 games, which is Liverpool, Man City. Then he played the Fulham game before he dropped, and then had to come back in for the Arsenal and Chelsea game. So he's had a pretty rough run of opponents there. But no, he's done excellently, hasn't he? This
good for the shirt collection.
He'll be delighted, and yeah, I think, as sort of Ipswich boys, all delighted for him as well, or Suffolk boys in your case, Mike. I don't want to besmirch Woodbridge on you, but
I was born in Ipswich.
But no, and I think it's great that there is still a representative of the academy in the team and in the squad. And when he's been asked on, he's done brilliantly. And I said on Sunday, yeah, likely when Tuanzebe's back, we end up with Tuanzebe and O'Shea rather than O'Shea and Wolfenden. But he's shown he's a Premier League footballer when he gets the opportunity to be one. And yeah, it's just fantastic for us.
Have we got time to do some questions here, Rich? Or shall we?
Yeah, if people want to get them in, we'll put some stuff up. We'll give them a second. I just wanted to, on the results as well, whilst we buy some time and do some padding, we could do some plugs in a minute as well. I know that everyone, we didn't play well against Newcastle, but Newcastle in a stonking run of form, by the way. Obviously won at Old Trafford, which is not the mean feat that it used to be. But Newcastle, we just played them at the wrong time, didn't we? I'm trying to find some mitigating circumstances or context to explain that 4-0 defeat. As I say, we weren't at our best, but they are right on it at the moment, aren't they? And another win for them last night. In terms of other pods, assuming that the internet is held up for me, I'll try and join Seb for pre-match, and that will probably go out on Thursday night ahead of Fulham, which is Sunday, 2 p.m. kickoff. Joe is going to battle against the logistics, the travel, the transport to try and make it for his usual flagship show seat at 8 p.m. live on Sunday as well. And then from next week onwards, it gets a little bit normal, albeit it's FA Cup weekend, isn't it? It's Bristol Rovers. So I think we'll still do a pre-match show. I think we might try and preview ITFC Women's really exciting FA Cup tie away at Man City next week too. But yeah, everything gets a bit normal once we know what day it is from kind of next week onwards.
Yeah, it doesn't though, Rich, though, because after the FA Cup game, we then play Brighton on the Thursday night.
On a Thursday, yeah.
So we're Thursday, Sunday.
So what we're saying is it will be normal for a few more weeks yet, but every few days there'll be something on the Blue Monday podcast feed. But always the Telegram chat continues 24/7, as Joe mentioned. Transfer chat opened yesterday. It will stay open for the month, and I will have
on the transfer chat. I have put in all the links we've had so far in this window. So just quickly to run through them, we have been linked with Aston Villa right back Kosta Nedeljkovic. So 19-year-old, I think he's Serbian. Slovenian. And then Chelsea obviously been linked with Liam Delap. That's the only out we've had so far. Amir Dedic, a right back from Red Bull Salzburg, more of a wing back, so maybe more as an Ogbene replacement rather than that side there. A guy in Portugal called Jordan Holsgrove, who's a Scottish number 10, 25-year-old playing for Estoril, which seems a bit of a leap there. Sean Longstaff, 25 million in the Daily Mirror. I think this was in as well. And talk of Latte Laff going to there. Glenn Kamara, who's the ex-Leeds player with Finland. And then Josh Madger was linked with us last night by an account as a striker. So just a flavour of what's happened so far, but that'll all be covered in greater detail soon.
24/7 on Transfer Chat and Telegram, folks. 2-week free trial and a subscription thereafter. But the chat is broader than that. It's all things.
Soon we'll have a Panini stickers.
We already do, Mikey.
Well.
I'll send you the link. Yeah,
Lovely.
FPL. Our mate FPL sorted that out yesterday. So I think certainly Joe and I are in there as well. So Panini sticker chat, general football chat. We've been talking about Cunha certainly, and Wayne Rooney, who has come up in the questions. So we won't spoil that. But yeah, 24/7 the chat continues on Telegram. So join us over there. Do we want to touch Cunha? I don't know. I mean, that sounds wrong. Do we want to cover Cunha, Mikey, or not? I mean, Ashley's asked about it. I think a few people have talked about it. 2-game ban confirmed this morning, isn't it?
Yeah, let me just put my glasses on for that one, Rich. Yeah, it is a 2-game ban for Cunha. Do I need to snap these now, or do I just put them back down? Yeah,
I see what you're doing. It makes sense.
I don't know if it's is it a 1-game. So is it a 1-game ban for the elbow and a 1-game ban for the stealing of the glasses, or is it 2 for the?
It's not even 2 games, is it?
We haven't seen it. Because it's not even 2 games. Because one of the games is the FA Cup game against Bristol City. So, and he went off injured in the last game, so he probably doesn't even really miss a game there. So yes, it feels a really, really lenient punishment for what happened. I put it in the group this morning. A lot of people disagreed with me. I didn't think it was that bad what he did. I think it was a little bit handbags and a little bit of a push. But generally, you get a free game ban for violent conduct, which I think is what it was, violent conduct. And it met that threshold. But the way that the wheels and the Christmas period meant that he's been able to play in the first 3 games for the new manager, which included 2 man of the match displays, where he helped them to 2 victories, gave them a real new manager bounce, is really, really frustrating for us there.
It looks like the FA get more time off at Christmas than teachers, Rich. But there we are.
Anyone else we want to besmirch today? Goodness me, I'm moving us on. Next question, Mikey. There you go.
Are any of our English players deserving of a call up to the full squad? I think Liam Delap is probably very, very close. I don't think Leif Davis has quite done enough, especially with Lewis Hall having such a good season and Levi Colwill being able to play in the left back position. What do you reckon, lads?
Yeah, I think Liam Delap is probably 4th choice at the moment. You've obviously got Harry Kane, Ollie Watkins, and Dominic Solanke, who were the 3 called up time round. Also, last time round, which was Lee Carsley's squad, and so we haven't seen what Thomas Tuchel thinks. But I'd imagine if any of those 3 are injured, I think he'd be the next in line, because there'd been talk previously like Danny Welbeck. Oh, he's playing so well for Brighton. Well, he's not going to come back in ahead of him, and then Ivan Toney has obviously moved out to the Saudi league, so really probably just. He's not a big enough name like Jordan Henderson was, or an experience and part of the squad.
It's better for Delap to carry on playing for the 21s rather than being the 4th choice striker in the squad.
So I imagine, but if one of those falls out for any reason, I imagine that he'll be in the squad, and which is great. But yeah, the others I think are a little way off, but we keep playing like we're playing, and like I say, Mari keep doing well for the under 21s as well. Then he'll get there.
There's no England game until March now anyway, is there? Has McKenna found his formation now for the second half of the season? I think this is an interesting one, because it is a formation that we saw away at Manchester City earlier this season, wasn't it? And he says that he doesn't have formations, but do you see the 3rd centre-back staying in place when we're playing against the likes of, Fulham are another fantastic team, but
I think it's just the personnel rather than the shape. I think it's just that if you put Tuan Zabia or O'Shea in that role, you're going to get a very different performance than if you put Harry Clark or Ben Johnson there. And I think we are just going to stick with that extra bit of solidity there. I think we need it. We've got enough in transition.
Agreed.
Rich, does Walton start against Fulham?
Yeah, I think he has to. Yeah, I wouldn't be changing a great deal. It depends on whether the players can go again. It's quite a way away Sunday, isn't it? So there should be no issues with that. I don't think there's any
Monday.
injuries.
The game was yesterday, wasn't it? So Monday.
Yeah,
to Sunday.
so we should be right. So I think you tried to keep that. I know people want to see us with 70% possession. That's not going to happen now. I think Joe's right. It's personnel rather than system for me. So for that reason, I'll be keeping it the same. But you can't take a keeper out. He's just got a clean sheet. So
and you look at a side like Crystal Palace who are above us. They've been able to play the same team for a few weeks in a row, and they've picked up positive results every week. So hopefully we're reaching that stage now where we can do that. Obviously, we've got the FA Cup game where we will be able to rotate and give the likes of Jack Taylor 90 minutes and Harry Clark, hopefully, and a few players like that. Do we let Phillips return in?
Sorry, Mikey. I think Broadhead keeps his place, doesn't he, Joe?
Yeah, I think Smolix is maybe in an away game, maybe offers you a little bit more solidity defensively, but I think the core of the team will remain the same, and they'll just be, as it was last year, the sort of 10s are the ones that changed effectively. That sort of the three behind the striker, whether that be the right wing, but so effectively the Wes Burns, Amari Hutchinson, and Nathan Broadhead roles last night. And I think that Amari Hutchinson is a nailed-on starter, so it's just the other two are the ones where any sort of changes we make to tweak things are going to be the differences.
Matt Lally asks, do we let Phillips return in January? I don't think we do we?
No, I think Joe dealt with this. We don't know if we'll even be able to either. So, like, if he's not obviously still not in the team, is he? And played well against Arsenal, and it's just. But I don't think if you were setting your squad up, you'd have the guy who's earning probably 3 times as much as anyone else in the squad, or costing 3 times as much as anyone else in the squad, as your backup to your 33-year-old sort of captain. It's just not a efficient use of resource, and I'm sure if we could jiggle things about to use that resource more efficiently, we would do so, but I doubt we're going to be able to.
Mm-hmm. Rich, how much would Kiyusti be worth now if he was available for sale? I mean,
we've got a deal agreed, haven't we? If we stay up,
it's reported, it's not been confirmed, but I think it's like 12 million euros, isn't it?
Yeah.
What an absolute bargain that would
be. He gets better and better, doesn't he, as well? There's a guy behind me who keeps saying, "Oh, you silky Swede," every time he does that kind of pirouette on. Yeah. And he was doing it last night as well. I love it. And
he's got the running power that we were sometimes missing in midfield last year. Luongo was a really strong runner and ran into that left channel really well, but he didn't have that pace to get away from players. But Kiyusti has it. He left Enzo Fernandez for dead a few times last night. Brilliant player to watch.
Yeah, I'd say he's a 10, 15 million pound player. And I think we've done really well there. And as I say, the fitter he gets, the better he gets. So we are, And, I think we kind of talk about Phillips as well. I think it's a really great central midfield 3 that we've got there. It might be that, as say, Luongo goes out and someone else comes in there. Taylor is a good option too. So, aren't we lucky? And what a kind of a low-key signing in the window that we all hoped would turn out really well. We had a bit of doubt over the injury situation with Brentford, didn't we? And look where he is now. He's kind of probably one of the first names on the team sheet now.
Superb stuff. So that's the end of 2024 on Blue Monday. It's been quite incredible, hasn't it? Just so many exciting games to talk about, so many exciting moments and things happening off the pitch for our club. Brilliant that we were able to end the calendar year on a high. But it's on to Fulham next, isn't it? We're cottaging on Sunday. You'll be back for the pre-match show alongside Seb, Rich, internet permitting, and just keep an eye out on our feed. Does anyone want to have the last word to try and move along from the cottaging?
What a year. Just an unbelievable year, and the perfect way to end what's been sort of a perfect year to be an Ipswich fan.
I totally agree. Yeah, what Joe said. And Happy New Year to everyone in advance, or Happy New Year if you've made it, whenever you listen to this, if it's tomorrow. And thank you for everyone's support for this year. Being a great year for the club. Obviously been a great year for us on Blue Monday as well. Finally, 2 seasons to chat about that have not been about crap in League One. So aren't we lucky? Here we are. Bring on 2025. Hopefully more positivity.
Blue Army.